Hello, friends. Welcome back to another Mess Hall Hangout. I dropped the ball last month, so unfortunately our meeting discussing the flight of the Eisenstein was lost to the internet abyss. In that time, we've been taking a bit of a Warhammer 40k book break, and for January we read William Gibson's NEUROMANCER. Written in 1984, it's said to be one of the earliest glimpses into the cyberpunk genre. If you're fond of cyberpunk and cyberspace, then you'll definitely enjoy this read, and you'll also see where modern-day science fiction movies take their inspiration. Keep listening and watching, if you're on YouTube, and enjoy the discussion and some art.
All right, we are live. Your coloring section is in the middle, which I love. And Annie, you can give your intro whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. I was about to say good morning, but it's not. So, good evening, everybody. Today, this month, we are taking a break from Warhammer, and we are discussing NEUROMANCER, as you can see, by William Gibson. This one was dense. But really good. Everybody, I think, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Hey there, mister!
We have mostly everybody here: Kiki, Squandy, me, V8, and Gendrid. Welcome, everyone.
Glad to be here.
Hello.
The select panel.
Oh, wait. Cameras are hidden at the moment for some reason.
Cool.
Here we go.
There we are. So hopefully, I think, did most of you do audio?
No,
Yeah,
I read physical.
I eyed.
I did both.
Okay. I feel like I should have done both because, like, some of the language and maybe, like, my brain just didn't connect with some of it. So I think I probably should have been listening and reading at the same time.
When I got confused, I went to switch to audio. I went back and forth.
Yeah, I think that's a smart idea.
That's interesting because when I get confused, I usually switch to the reading part of it. Like I've switched to physical reading because for some reason it makes more sense to me. If I'm listening to it, it's easier for me to just like, oh yeah. And
I think it depends on the book.
Yeah, it
at
depends
least
on
for
the book
me.
for sure.
Like this one, I just need to hear somebody read the sentence because maybe their cadence is different or the emphasis is different somewhere. With this one was a little bit confusing because you really like have to just dive into this world and accept it instead of trying to be like, well, why is it like this? I don't understand.
It's the pros are very sure of themselves, even though they're foreign to us. It's like the writing is so confident in its world building and the world that it built. It's like you just kind of have to like, oh, I'm here now, and I have to get used to it.
There were also so many parts where I was like, and he literally says the Matrix, but I'm just like, am I in the Matrix? Like, this is Morpheus. This is Trinity.
Oh yeah.
This is.
Yeah, Molly is so Trinity. And like, yeah, just like the Matrix in general is cool to see in like book form.
And to like know that this book was like, what was it, written in like 86? Came out in 86?
84?
84?
1984, July 1st, 1984.
And it's so like, so obviously that was a long time ago. Like I was 3. I was 3 in 1984. Sure. And so to think about like, how did he come up with this futuristic world like at that time? Was there anything that like sort of inspired William Gibson to write this? Do we know?
Yes.
I wonder what was around back then.
So I watched a bunch of interviews with him
Okay.
after reading this the first time, and then I kind of went back and did some research after finishing it this time. And he will he's very humble, and he will never take credit for coming up with this stuff, even though like to us and to most people, like he is the godfather of this. But he said that he was inspired by a lot of things beforehand, and
People credit him to coining the cyberpunk phrase, right? Or that term.
I believe the term, he did come up with the term. Yeah.
I mean,
sorry,
I think
just wanted to throw that in there.
he might have not have like he might be very, I guess, humble about it and not want to claim a lot of it. I think I think the even if some of this is like inspired by other works, a lot of this is also very much like the first time many of these concepts are joined together. And so while some of this stuff may have been like, you know, yeah, this is from this or this is from something else, this is the first time in any sort of media where all these different concepts came together into like one single cohesive piece of art. And it just blew my mind. Like I am so upset with myself for having not read this years ago.
I'm surprised you hadn't. I thought for sure this would be a second read for you, or a third read.
It's definitely not going to be my only read.
It's fun.
It is.
That's really exciting too, because like when a book really like sucks you in to the point where you're like, I need to buy a physical copy and I'm gonna like read it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's rare these days.
Because it's dense, but it's 280 pages. Like it's not that long. It's pretty. It's once you, especially on your second time and your third time, like you know the beats and you know and then you are part of the city. You are part of the lore now, and like you get it, and so you can kind of fly through it.
Well, because he's so descriptive with his words, and yeah, so it just, even though it's not long, there's still like a lot to it in the short span that he wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
General Annoyance says, because we were talking, he said this earlier and I just caught it. It's very like Frank Herbert, where Gibson just kind of name drops things and expects you to know what they are.
That's when I got confused.
That's what I was mentioning a couple weeks ago in the Discord, where he just like is talking about like, and then he grabs a Microsoft, and you're like, okay, what is that? Because I know that as a company, not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he starts like name dropping like things. It's like, what is this? Or what is he doing? What is he using? Or who is this person?
Yep. I think this will be the last time I say this, but I'm going to say it officially on the podcast. Is I think it's the most similar to something like A Clockwork Orange, Anthony Burgess, where you have to reread paragraphs to make sure that you understood it right, because there's lingo and terminology that is so foreign and specific that I read it. To me, like the first time reading Neuromancer felt physically like reading Anthony Burgess Clockwork Orange. So that's the one I related to.
But the movie was like, what the fuck?
It was, for me, it was like, it was not so much the jargon, because like I feel like everything in the book I kind of had some sort of concept of, but it was more like, did he really just say that? Like, and I would reread it like just to confirm that I didn't make that shit up. Like it was so surreal. Like you said, you know, feels like reading, you know, a book version of The Matrix, or like I don't want to jump too far ahead, but like, you know, when they mention a character that sounds incredibly like, you know, not even a main character, this edge character related to a main character is Johnny Mnemonic. Like the way they described him, I was like, I've seen that movie. I know that character, and his name's Johnny in this book. I was like, what the hell?
Yep. And you can look to things like The Matrix, like the cyberpunk tabletop game. That's the cyberpunk
Shadowrun,
CD Projekt Red. Shadowrun. Like you can see all these things are like, oh, that's where they got this from. You know, like it's crazy.
It's almost like I wanted to use my imagination, but all of these things already exist for me where they didn't exist for the author. So I'm like, oh, like I've watched so many playthroughs of people of cyberpunk, and I'm like, it helped me. So I didn't have to like necessarily create something from scratch in my brain, but it definitely like helped me a little bit. I did get like super confused towards the end when they were I had to read it read a breakdown online because I was like, are they in space now? Are they
Oh
not
yeah, I
in
got
space?
confused when they were switching locations a lot.
Yeah.
Or like the beginning, I
They
was like,
were.
so they're in Japan, right? Okay.
Oh, and then I also got really confused at when we get introduced to Riviera. That sicko. So that whole scene when we get introduced to him was really hard for me because I was like, the way that I was reading it, I wasn't reading like they were there. I was kind of reading it as like they were watching something. Like,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah.
That,
Like,
that
you know,
scene
when
where they
they- in the
captured him, it
beginning-
was like
Right.
that one definitely confused me.
Yeah, so like I thought it was like another scene like in the beginning when Molly takes him to the fights. The knife fight where it's like projected in the hologram and stuff. And I thought it was similar to that. But then when I like read a breakdown, I was like, "Oh." And then it was also like really interesting to learn that like Riviera's like modifications allow him to manipulate everything you see around you.
Yeah. It's like one thing that I guess I didn't feel Gibson really went into, but it's almost as though like the technology exists that there's advertising everywhere, like literal virtual advertising. So there's technology around everywhere, like that can project things, and he can manipulate that technology to sort of like show what he wants to. And so like later on, when he's like when they're sneaking through that place, and like what's her name kicks over a projector, like he had to put that projector there because that it wasn't present. The technology he needed to make his shows show up wasn't there for that. Like so he can make use of it in common areas where, you know, like you could possibly see advertising just anywhere. Which that movie? What was that movie where like, oh my god, it was like all video games and retro and shit a while back.
Ready Player One.
Yeah. So like if you remember like being inside the verse in Ready Player One, like everything's like all crazy glowed up. It's almost like that's reality. Like the world in this case is very much, you know, megacorps and advertising everywhere, and like his modifications allow him to take over that technology. So
It's crazy.
what's
Like,
the
that was insane.
what's that called? Something reality.
AR.
Augmented reality.
Yeah. So it's pretty much what it is. Like essentially, in this timeline or this time frame, augmented reality is just a thing everybody has, per se. Like that's what it comes down to.
Yep.
Did anybody have like a favorite character? I mean, besides like our main character.
You know, I don't even think he was one of my favorites. I liked him, but he wasn't my favorite. Like I was happy to have a main character that was so dark and I would say broken in many ways, but he was not my favorite. I actually liked her a lot better.
Molly.
I feel like Molly was she was more honest with herself, whereas like he was constantly like, even later on, he's still like trying to fight to like get high and stuff. Like I feel like Molly was always herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or straightforward with what she wanted. His main drive has always been getting back online. Like, not even drugs, but like the Matrix, the cyberscape. He didn't care about the real world. He just wanted to be able to jack in again.
Do all the stuff that he used to do, yeah.
Yeah.
General Annoyance says it's like in Altered Carbon where ads are broadcast directly into your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? That could be something that happens soon.
General, it says, is fighting to get high not being himself, though? Does he really ever try to fight the self-identity that he's an addict and just wants to ride the nets? See, I don't know that it is. I think the real him was way back in the day wanting to just, be in the net out there. But when he lost that ability, he lost a part of himself. And he tried to replace it with getting high. And then when he got the ability back, I think that's the interesting thing about his characters, that he's got these conflicting emotions now of he can now do what he wanted to do, but he's addicted. He's used to being high. And so he's got this weird inner turmoil of like, he got what he wanted back, but it's like, it seems like nothing's like, he doesn't really seem to embrace it the way he once did.
It was just a replacement for not being able to get back online and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. But the whole, just like, everything is just insane. And like, I really enjoyed hearing about Molly's backstory about being like pretty much like a sex doll.
So she did that as a means to an end. Like that wasn't, if I think of like cyberpunk, like there's a main character in cyberpunk who is a sex doll. That's like what she does. And I think Molly and that character are very much the same, except for Molly became a sex doll to get money for a purpose. Whereas when I think of most sex dolls in the genre or even in cyberpunk, a lot of them are like addicts, living paycheck to paycheck. They're not really, they don't have a goal. They're like stuck in the system. That's what they are now. Whereas like Molly had an identity outside of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was pretty much just to get her modifications.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of it was for revenge, to get back the people who killed her boyfriend.
Yep.
Which is cool. So I love it when they talk about her, like her razor hands and fingers.
Yeah, I want X-Acto knife fingers.
Yeah.
I do not.
Pass.
DeGrango says, can we discuss that everyone who resisted the dominant corporatized culture was basically forced to be isolated and disconnected from the world around them, even though they were probably more adept than most at navigating and moving through that world? I don't understand what you mean, DeGrango.
Yeah, I lost that one.
I guess like give me a character, like Molly, or
I mean,
she's pretty adept in both worlds, and she had those like glasses.
I think it does a really good job, even just outside of its setting, of getting a really engaging protagonist and story going. Like this guy who used to be this badass is kind of like throwing care into the wind. Like they kind of describe him in the beginning of like he doesn't even carry a gun anymore because he kind of just wants to die, you know, and he goes and does the shadiest deals possible on purpose, and I think that's so cool and engaging. And then you know, getting introduced to these people who are like, hey, we can help you. And then they help him, but then also like put in these like poison sacks that are like, if you don't help us, then we're gonna kill you again.
And
If
Shuri
you go back
dies.
to drugs, these are going to kill you. We've
Yeah.
taken out your ability to get high off of drugs.
Did
So
Did they say that it was going to kill him? I thought they said it would just put him back in the state he was already in, where he can't connect to the net again.
No, they were. It was gonna kill him. Pretty sure.
They're
I
like
don't recall.
poison sacks. Let me see.
The sacks.
I don't think they ever said it would kill him. I think they said it was going to put him back where he was, which would have been torture for him, because he wants everything to get out of the state he's currently in when they find him.
Yep, correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So
He wanted to die. If they were going to go that route, that would defeat the purpose, because that's
Fair.
what he wanted really anyway. If he couldn't get in the net, then he didn't want to live.
Yeah, which is what. Yeah, agreed. And I think the interesting thing there is like he was a cowboy on the net. He was like one of the best. He was trained to be one of the best, and he broke the rules and fucked it up, and like they took away his abilities, and so he became what we know as like a street samurai. He just fucking became this sort of like operator in the real world, and just like living to that next high. And I do like that whole, he just didn't care. Like he was like, you know what? Like, and people, and the interesting thing to me there was that the crazier he acted, the more people seemed to sort of like shy away from him. It was like almost like his brazenness made him more invincible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because he just has no, like, he has no fear. He has no, he's just is missing that one thing. And so now he's just like, I'll put myself in any situation. And that it kind of acts as a shield in and of itself. Interesting. But also just like the concept of the overarching thing of the novel of just an AI in general, I think is cool to think about in the 80s, but that two AIs would want to would need to get together to form a super intelligence. Like that's just like the coolest thing you could tell me in 1983.
True.
Yeah.
Very different
Agreed.
time.
It's so it's coolest thing you could tell me now. Like okay,
Yeah.
like, and that's the cool thing is AI is such a big thing now. This book is kind of like really relevant. You know?
True.
And
It's still not nearly as advanced, so that's why it's still really cool to us, because we're not like.
yeah, but my Alexa can still tell me who is speaking to her. Like she'll be like, she's like, "Good afternoon, Annie." Blah blah blah, and I'm like, "Excuse me."
I think
Come again?
Sure, I get a little creeped out sometimes.
Meanwhile,
by
Wintermute
technology.
is fucking jacking people out into space and murdering them.
you're right. Oh
Jacking
wow.
people out into
he's
space, like
Literally flatlining people for like 5 minutes at a time so he can have a conversation with them and then reviving them.
Right.
Sure.
That is
I always
so
thought
wild.
the interaction when we meet the flatline Dixie.
He's my favorite character in the book.
I love Dixie, and then
I got
Dixie
confused by that.
by Dixie.
Well, the way like that part in there sort of confused me, because it like Dixie, Flatline, whoever had like 5 different names in the book, and like it was very confusing the way that I thought they had like 2 personalities that were gonna like help them do things. The way it was phrased, I was like, what in the fuck is going on here? And then like
all him.
Yeah, but it was so confusing.
I think the way that he was introduced was a bit confusing because I guess I didn't understand at first that Dixie was dead, and we're just like taking his brain. But then, because like he had a call with Dixie and then hangs up and then calls Dixie back again. And Dixie was just like, "What? Like we talked? I don't remember."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
I was like, oh.
because he's just a
Ingram.
because he's a flatline. He's basically like just RAM. He has no memory of anything that you talked about the last time he was booted up.
Yeah, which I thought was awesome.
I think there was a part when they did say, like, you're dead, like, in it, and I had missed it when reading it, but I had caught it during the audiobook.
It probably like stuck out a little
Yeah,
bit more.
it did stick out more because they, like, you know, flat out said it when he was reading it, so that's when I caught that part. But I didn't realize that either at first. But there was a line where they had said that, I'm pretty sure. I remember.
There's
I
a lot
liked
of
it,
people that,
like when Dixie tries to help explain to Case, like, Wintermute isn't a person. He does not have feelings, and you think that he's going to, like, have your back for certain things. He won't hesitate to end you, like, to get what he wants,
Oh yeah.
which is to be alive. Well,
So-
kind of.
Well, I think
He doesn't know what he wants.
Yeah.
Wintermute has
he's being driven to merge with the other AI, but neither of them really understand why they're doing it. They just need to do it.
I think the part that's sort of difficult there is Wintermute has a plan that it's acting against. Like, and I'm not even sure, you know, maybe that plan is just part of the underlying design from the creator. But Wintermute has this plan and has like been biding its time to get the right players in place to actually enact it. I mean, talking about finding a child who finds a key to hide the key in a specific place, then kill the child so that nobody will ever know. It was like, what? Like, you did what? Like that part really hits home that this is not a person. This is an AI with a plan, and don't fuck with it.
Yeah, it's doing whatever it needs to do because it doesn't value your life at all.
Armitage in general, like as a character, is like, that's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love
yeah.
backstory and then the unraveling of Armitage. Like,
Yeah.
So
and
I don't know if anybody else got this, but when they were describing what he looks like, my brain kept envisioning Bato from Ghost in the Shell because of the eyes and everything. Like, that's just for the entire book. That's the way my brain decided he looked.
Yeah, I pictured him like a very large, thick, like Jughead looking dude. So that kind of fits.
that was
Yeah, that whole dual character thing going on, and he has no idea that he's both people.
Well, I think so. It almost gets to like the Manchurian Candidate, right? Like, I feel like he's in there, but he's like been programmed so much by Wintermute that like he's just responding at will to what Wintermute's directing him to do, and like as the plan's getting closer and closer to like fruition, Armitage has almost nothing to do. Like, he's done his part. He got all the players into place. So
yeah, Molly even says that at one point. She's like, he just sits in his room. He doesn't go anywhere or do anything.
And he stares at the wall.
And I think that, like, in my opinion, that was Armitage's downfall. If like Wintermute had just like given him tasks to keep moving and doing things, I wonder if he'd held it together longer.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't have cracked.
Gordo wouldn't have come back.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe.
I don't know. I kind of feel like that may have been part of Wintermute's plan the whole time, though, because he got rid of him as being a potential problem later by him cracking and eventually, or essentially killing himself by trying to escape to go inform his superiors what was going on.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like Wintermute wanted to erase all evidence that anything happened, or else Wintermute would have just killed Case, right?
But Wintermute sabotaged the escape pod, so he did intend on killing him.
I mean, was the sabotage because he had already started to go crazy, or was it the other way around?
That I don't know. He may have sabotaged it because Wintermute realized that he was cracking and didn't want him to ruin the plan.
Mm.
Better off just killing him,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
letting him
because
go.
he's AI. He doesn't care. It's whatever
Yeah.
the best scenario outcome for the scenario is.
Yeah.
Whatever gets him what he wants, the easiest route.
Mm-hmm.
That's the route he's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he doesn't really know.
But I think all this doesn't help with the ease of reading the novel because Armitage is Cordo and Dixie is Polly and you
Yeah.
know, like
And rats
all
and
these
somebody
different
else. He's like
people
4
have-
people during the book.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's also the pimp whose name I forgot.
Yeah. I really like that part. That
Or
part
no, that's
sucked.
Wintermute. My fault.
Yeah.
I'm getting them confused now.
Yeah, but
And
that
then
part sucked.
Wintermute
Like,
takes on, just
The pilot of the tug or whatever that is named Marcus Garvey. I remember the first time I read it, I was like, is this
about
a new
Marcus
character?
Garvey.
No, this is the name of the ship.
I know.
Marcus
Yeah.
Garvey is an actual Jamaican political activist or president.
Oh,
yeah, there's
From,
there's
like-
so many like hidden references in there if you like look up stuff. It's
Yeah.
But it
It's
makes sense
like-
because
They're
they are activists.
Yeah.
true.
I agree.
Zion is also another thing that
Mm-hmm.
the Matrix lifted.
And the Yakuza, too.
What?
Yakuza.
The
Yakuza.
Those are just in
That's-
Japanese. That's like the Japanese mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when they
Yeah, that
mentioned
don't
that,
have
I
any-
was... True. But when they mentioned that, I'm like, I know what that is. Japanese mafia.
I think this book could only be better if like some of that had been a little less like all over the place.
Vague.
It, like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, it's just the inconsistencies in some of the things, like how Dixie was referred to like by 4 different names. Like it just some of that could have been done better. But I mean, this is still like I've already said it. It's like in my top 5 books of all time, like easily. Like this is it because it just hits home how much like the cyberpunk genre is like from this book.
Yep.
I think the
It
whole
mixes-
like concept of like the decks, the cyber decks, like like all that is just so wild. And just like even as he was describing it, like he like taped something to the bottom of the deck so that he could like move it over to the other boat or whatever. It was just like hearing like those are details that could have been totally left out, and I'm glad they weren't. It was like nice that he kept up with all the things, even though it was a bit noisy.
Yep. Yeah, Cyberpunk has this weird thing where it's like a Lego movie, or like seeing these toys. Like we all here, like I love technology in general, like hardware and how it all works, and software and programming and all that stuff. Gendered, you do that for a living, so it's like a Lego movie in the sense that like it's like Cyberpunk allows you to have these toys that you're so fascinated with, like become like stretch out of themselves and become part of us and our world and expand on that idea. And it's like a very childlike wonder for me. The Matrix and Cyberpunk and this Neuromancer is like, it's just like this embodiment of these things this thing that I love about my life now, technology, like just bleeding and stretching like vines into our world, and I just love that.
Yeah, I fell in love with the genre like in my teens when I got into the game Shadowrun as a tabletop,
I know
as like
that
a
game.
tabletop RPG game, and then like I was so into that, and I like read the novels from that like universe and all that stuff, and like just all this stuff was just so surreal. The only thing different is that Shadowrun has like magic in it as well, like magic and like other races. But otherwise, it's the same world. It's like megacorps running everything. Like, it's so wild.
Yep. And I was only 10 when my dad called me, because he lives in Texas, and I would go visit him in the summer times. And I was 10 and he called me and he's like, when you come visit me this summer, we're going to watch this movie that I saw in theaters called The Matrix. And he like explained it to me. And I was like, that sounds like the coolest thing in the entire world. And then I went to go see it. I went to visit him and we watched it on his, because he's like you, Gendred, where he's in tech, he's a programmer. And so he had like this incredible big screen TV with surround system in like, I don't know, 1999. So like, it was like the best movie viewing experience ever. I was 10 years old. The Matrix just blew my socks off. And that's kind of what my introduction to that was. That was the first thing I'd ever seen that was like that. So, and that's just like cyberpunk, but also kung fu movies, which is like, yeah, please, come on. What?
I feel like this book did like what Star Wars did for space. But this was like, I want to say the internet, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Star Wars was so important to help. I don't know. I mean, like when it came out, was Star Wars that popular?
For sure.
Or did people?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a phenomenon from the very beginning.
From the get-go, yeah.
Anything where it's like, anytime you see these movies or this media with like really crazy futuristic stuff, like unless it's something that's just being rehashed, they always seem to get great attention. Like an example being like Star Trek for its timeline, like the original OG Star Trek was huge. There's a reason it's still around, because like it just made such an impact. Star Wars was the same. It was like very much like, it's just this like these science fiction concepts, people can put themselves very easily into those spaces mentally versus like the Lord of the Rings. A lot of people like the Lord of the Rings. Nerds love the Lord of the Rings, but like it's not as universally loved, I would say, as like things that are much more easy for people to put themselves into. You can picture yourself in Star Trek a lot more easily than you can picture yourself in like Rivendell. It's different.
There's only one return, and it's not of the king, it's of the Jedi.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. So the interesting thing is like between 1984, like when this came out, Johnny Mnemonic the movie came out in 1995. I didn't even know that was a William Gibson book. And then The Matrix in the year 2001, like it's just like my whole life has, like I wish I'd read this book earlier, because like so much of my teenage years into my 20s is like based around this genre, and it's mind blowing.
Yeah, I'm really surprised you hadn't.
I didn't even like know you bought the whole like series.
The set. Yeah, there's a 4-book set.
Yeah.
What's it
So
called?
I got them all.
The Swell trilogy. The Sway trilogy.
Sorry.
Sprawl?
Something just fell behind
The
me.
Sprawl, I think. I'm looking. Hold on.
I think it's Sprawl.
Sprawl trilogy.
Yeah, and the Sprawl is like, it's just a reference essentially to the U.S. and what the U.S. becomes in this series, because it's very similar to almost like, I don't know if this is a valuable comparison, but like in Judge Dredd, like it's almost like the world is a city. Like it's not It's not there's no place between cities. It is a city. And so the sprawl is pretty much the city that is the United States, it seems like.
Like Coruscant.
Cool.
That's why they described it.
I just had like the hardest time grasping when they were in space that they were actually in space.
Yeah, I got a little confused on where they're at just because they didn't describe, the changes too well.
And I thought I was like slow to the pickup or something, but then I was like, no, this is just confusing.
They just didn't describe it well with the changes like that.
Yeah,
I really, the moment they talked about, like they talked about going somewhere, the way they described it made me think of, what was that movie? Oh, fuck, I'm so bad at this. I'm sorry. There's a movie with, who's the guy from the Bourne movies?
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon has a movie where he's essentially on the planet and he's like trying to get into outer space where all the rich people are.
Is that Elysium?
Elysium.
Yes.
Elysium. Yeah. Yes. So Elysium, the way they described it in this book made me think of the way that was described in Elysium.
Like a tube.
Yeah, just like
And the
going
closer
up.
you get to the middle, the less gravity and blah blah blah.
When they were first describing the shuttle when they were going to Zion, I was thinking that they were like on an airplane. I didn't realize that they were like on a shuttle until
On
they
a
were
space shuttle.
until he.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't,
they're
like,
not
realize
that different.
At first until sure. I was just
same deal.
my brain was imagining airplane until he started describing it more, and I was like, oh wait, they're on a space shuttle. I was like, this is a little different.
Well, and then they were
Okay.
talking about like getting their suits on and stuff, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. That's when I was wait, I think they're in space.
So the sprawl is officially the Boston-Atlanta metropolis axis, an urban environment
God.
extending almost along the east coast of the United States.
Okay.
Gotcha. The part that still really tickles my brain is the Neuromancer's copy of Case and his girlfriend and the little boy on the beach and stuff. That is really, really like mind bendy to me. Like of a mind bendy book.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about at the end, or are you talking about
the very, very end? Yeah.
before that? He's dead. That's the way I took it.
I don't think he's dead.
Think so?
I think
There are other books.
But do
Is
they
Case in
all
them?
involve Case?
Are they
Pretty
in
sure.
the
I haven't
other
read
book?
any of the other ones.
I don't think he's dead because I think
I took it as, well, he may not be dead, but I took it as he's in Wintermute's program. Wintermute is controlling him right now, and he's not really walking around where he thinks he is. That's why he sees the city sometimes and other times he doesn't.
He's in cyberspace, and he hears, pretty much like Polly. Is that what his name is?
The dead guy?
The dead guy. He hears the dead guy, and he sees the
Dixie,
little
whatever.
boy. And I don't think he's dead, though. I think that he is thinking like this must be a copy of me. There must be a copy of me somewhere here, because it's the thing that he experienced earlier.
Was it a copy or like a vision hologram of him?
Well, that's what we don't know.
The first time he was there, he was flatlined by Wintermute. Because when he comes out of that, the dude in the Jamaican dude in the Garvey, I can't remember his name now.
Malcolm.
Malcolm is basically like, you good? You were dead. I was about to like pull your plug, and he's like, I'm okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. There was a couple different things I was misunderstanding what you were referring to. So when he connects, like it's a very hard thing, I think, for me to sort of explain, but I believe that almost as though when it's almost like he becomes like an entity on the net when he connects. Like that's the way It's like an out of body experience for him. And
That's what
Wintermute,
I
I think
mean.
his body goes
Yeah.
to like a vegetative state, essentially.
right. And it's like that's kind of what I believe how Dixie was created. Like they allowed him to like come out. They made a copy of him while he was out of like in cyberspace, and that's what the Ingram is. Like Dixie went on to do other things after that and then died, but that's a copy of him from a point in time.
Right.
That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah. It's like a copy of his consciousness, like a Dixie type thing, but it's like stored in the not in RAM, it's stored in this cyberspace by NEUROMANCER.
That's what I think is going on currently at the end of the book. I don't think we're actually following Case anymore at that point. I think we're following the program that thinks it's Case now.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that.
See,
That
I
just
took
reminds me
that's
of, like,
just the way
Altered
I took it.
Carbon.
yeah. I
Like
took
they
it.
get re-sleeved.
I took it though as like when they're in the mansion and Case is like hooked in and able to like go into where the AIs are, like that's one case. I think when I don't mean to use his name that way. That's one place. I think at the end of the book when he sees them like the entities or whatever on the beach like from afar, I took that to mean like Wintermute almost like unveiling part of the Matrix to him and then like covering it back up. He's like, because Wintermute told him he's out there. He is the Matrix.
You're talking about Wintermute NEUROMANCER super
Yes.
intelligence.
Yes. Yeah.
Because Case, like Molly meets up with Case, he has a new girlfriend and everything. Like Case moves on at the end of the book. Like he has a life.
Did he have a
Has
new girlfriend or was it his old
Yeah.
one?
He has a new girlfriend because his old girlfriend died.
Linda, yeah.
Wait, what?
That's
Oh,
why
yeah, you're right.
she's in the dream state that NEUROMANCER creates. That's
Yeah,
why
you're right, because he
sees
sees her. He sees her at the end of the book, like on the beach
Exactly.
with the kid.
And
Dixie.
NEUROMANCER already tried to convince Case to stay with that information. Like, hey, stay in here. And he's like, no. And so at the end of the book, he like is doing his own thing, has a new girlfriend, and Wintermute NEUROMANCER contacts him and is like, we have the sum of all things or whatever. Like we figured it out. And remember they tell him that they get a signal from the Alpha Centauri system, which is like a lead into the next book or something. And then he jacks into cyberspace and he gets that experience again. And I think it's what Gendred was saying, where like he's showing him like, I have a copy of you in this. But Case is still Case.
I don't know, man. I feel like we could listen to this book like 16 times and come up with a bunch of different endings.
That's true.
You're not wrong.
I have different opinions because of the confusion.
This is
I
like
know it's probably
like when The
around,
Matrix came out and you go back and watch the movie like 8 different times and you pick up
You're
something
like,
different each time.
No, this is what happened. Yeah.
like, what's it called? What movie is this? John Carter. Has anybody watched
Oh
that
yeah,
movie?
I've seen that. Mhm.
The Disney movie?
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Stick with me. Have you seen it though?
Yeah.
Nope.
So Kiki's the only one who's seen it.
Awful.
It's not great. I'll say that. However, like when we're talking about re-sleeving and stuff and what you think case might not be Case, it could be a different version of Case. Well, like in John Carter, he essentially like finds this code and like it's essentially like you're getting faxed to different planets. So your original version isn't going, but your current fax is, the fax of yourself is, if that makes sense. So when you were talking about that, that kind of reminded me of like, oh, he's just like faxing himself places, and there's different versions of him just floating around.
So this is the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It is Linda. It's Linda again on the beach. It is not
Oh, it
a
is?
different character.
At the
Yep.
end? Yeah.
No, but in real life, he gets a new girlfriend at the end of the book.
Oh yeah.
Linda
Okay.
is a
Yes.
recreation
Yeah,
because that's why Neuromancer is trying to convince him to stay. Look, I have your old girlfriend.
Yes.
So the
And he shows him.
the Wikipedia page, this is the summary. The poison in Case's bloodstream is washed out. He and Molly are profusely paid. Polly's ROM construct is erased at his own request.
Right.
Molly
he always
leaves
wanted
Case.
to be deleted.
Molly leaves Case, who finds a new girlfriend, resumes his hacking work. Neuromancer contacts him, claiming it has the sum of total of the works, the whole show, and is looking for others like itself. Scanning recorded transmissions, the super AI finds a transmission from the Alpha Centauri star system. While logged into cyberspace, Case glimpses Neuromancer standing in the distance, who is a little boy, with Linda and himself, Case. He also hears inhuman laughter, which is Polly. The sighting implies that Neuromancer created a copy of Case's consciousness that exists in cyberspace.
Yeah. One night in the Matrix, Case sees small figures on the edge of a mountain of data. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And that's what I'm saying. That part is like, I don't know. Like, it's just weird. It's just too much for me.
Yeah, it's like Neo looking at himself. It's very strange. There can't be two of the one.
I had assumed he was dead because of that, and the fact that they don't explain at all how they fixed the poison sacs. They're like, oh yeah, your body just overcame it because you're just that good.
Flushed it out of his blood.
No, it wasn't. So that's not what he said. He said, Neuromancer told his body how to like get rid of it. It's like it wasn't that he could do it on his own. It was that.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, sorry.
And that part is just wild. Like, what? Like, how is that even a thing?
All these poisons that were supposedly going to destroy your body can just be like, oh yeah, send them out that way, and you're good.
By the power of prayer.
Yeah, to be fair, they don't explain that very well.
I almost wonder if, like, Neuromancer, the character, the final AI character, has unlocked like the secrets to humanity.
Well,
is
the super intelligence. Yeah.
So is Neuromancer the super intelligence after they combine, or is Neuromancer the other AI that combined with Wintermute?
No, there's twin AIs. Sorry.
This is the combined version. Go ahead.
One is Rio, I guess is what we know it as.
Was it Rio? Okay. I couldn't remember the other one's name. I thought that was Neuromancer.
Plus Rio equals Neuromancer.
Okay.
No. Neuromancer is housed in Rio de Janeiro. And so they refer to it as Rio until it tells them that its name is Neuromancer. It's a twin AI of Wintermute. They were created together and separated. And Wintermute is programmed to find Neuromancer. Its whole existence is to get with Neuromancer, to become a super intelligence. That's what its programming was.
Yeah, because
it's housed in Rio de Janeiro. That's why it's referred
I just remembered that version was like, I'm programmed to like capture the essence of your soul, essentially, whereas Wintermute's job is to be administrative and go get all this shit taken care of so that we can join.
Mm-hmm. Yes, like I said, Wintermute's programming was to find Neuromancer. That's it.
Okay.
It's so wild.
Mm-hmm.
Just the themes there.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
The AI's new personality is nameless, a combination of both Wintermute and Neuromancer. It's so powerful it can control essentially the entire Matrix, and because of humanity's reliance on technology, the entire world. Although so massive, there can only be one of it on Earth.
Jesus, I didn't know that. But I think that's the power of that resolution, because like they don't describe how Case gets the blood sac or the poison sacs out of his blood vessels that they installed, but for that super intelligence, that it's so crazy powerful. All it has to do is tell them. It just tells him how to get rid of it in a very simple, in a very way that Case can do, you know. And I think that's the power. There's like power behind that.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't even a matter of, if I recall, it wasn't that his body could like break it down. It's that his body could make it inert, and then he had to go have a transfusion to get rid of the sacs.
That's what I was saying with the flushing. Like they flushed it out with the knowledge of this super AI.
Yeah, that whole deal is just crazy.
It's crazy that all came out of one dude's brain in the 80s.
Sure.
The one thing that they do throughout this entire book that drives me crazy is that he refers to items. I mean, I know we mentioned them earlier, like the Microsoft and stuff like that, where he doesn't explain it. But what drives me crazy is that he'll use like a company name to refer to a specific item as if that's the only thing they make, and you should know exactly what that is already. Like, when he talks about like the Honda or the Braun or I'm like, what the hell is the Braun? Because I know of Braun as like an electric shaver, and not a thing that walks around and has an eyeball on it and stuff. Like, we need. He does that with a lot of things, or it's like the Mitsubishi, and I'm like, okay, what is that? Because they make literally everything.
Sure, I thought of my.
If you dig through their company, and so some of it you're just supposed to assume. I mean, the only context you get is it's probably tech related.
Yeah.
But you know, some of the stuff he's like using company names to describe it, but he's using these like gigantic multinational corporations that make so many different things. I'm like, okay, what type of thing are you trying to describe to us with that name? Because I can't pick a thing.
So apparently, the Microsoft Corporation was named before Neuromancer, right? But William Gibson,
they were named, I think it was like 2 years before he started writing the book.
Okay.
But they weren't like a household name yet, but they did exist.
They existed, but William Gibson is like, that is not where I got the name from. He said he knew nothing about computers. He had to look up stuff like RAM, and he knew the concepts of like AI, but he said he knew nothing about computers when he wrote Neuromancer. Like, it was all concepts.
For someone
and
who
he
didn't
never
know
heard
anything
of
about computers, he really knows how to like use the jargon to confuse the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he might not have known about Microsoft yet because it wasn't really a well-known
He said
thing
that
yet. So then he
they
just kind
both
of made that up.
claim-
That's kind of crazy.
Bill Gates and William Gibson are like, nope, you didn't name it after you, didn't name it after
Crazy.
you.
Yeah, it's crazy that he used a lot of those popular names, but didn't really like those weren't really a thing in his brain. Like, you know.
Neuromancer
well-known
was
thing.
commissioned. It was commissioned by Terry Carr for a science fiction special. He was given a year to complete it. Gibson undertook the actual writing out of blind animal terror at the obligation to write an entire novel, a feat which he felt was 4 or 5 years away from. After viewing the first 20 minutes of Blade Runner, which was released when Gibson had written a third of the novel, he figured Neuromancer was sunk, done for. Everyone would assume I'd copied my visual texture from this astonishingly fine-looking film. He rewrote the first 2/3 of the book 12 times, feared losing the reader's attention, and was convinced that he would be permanently shamed following its publication.
Wow.
Yeah, he really didn't think that the book was going to become really popular.
So I just went and looked it up because I couldn't remember. The Microsoft, the company, was founded in 75.
Yeah, I was going to say something.
Incorporated in 81, and they released the first version of Windows in 85.
Yeah.
Which is when they started becoming more of a household name once they actually had an OS people could use. Because before that, they didn't really have products, or not a lot of it anyway.
Yeah.
So this came out before Windows did, so they were more than likely not a household name at the time.
No, yeah, I mean, he's quoted as saying, like, I had no idea what Microsoft was when I wrote that in the book.
Yeah, and that timeline makes that totally believable that would be a thing, especially if he's saying he doesn't know anything about computers, because the only people who probably would before that happened would be people in the tech industry who worked with them.
True.
And you know, we were talking last night during GTA Community Night, which everyone should join on Wednesdays.
Fun.
Nice.
Cross promotions.
But we
Good
were
job.
talking about taking chances and doing like the craziest thing you can, because chasing your dreams, and that's William Gibson right there. Like, he didn't think he could do it. He did not want. He wanted to take on this challenge that he was sure he would fail, and now he's the godfather of this thing.
This
Like,
genre. Yep.
It's fucking amazing.
You can do anything.
The fact that, how to get my words in order. The fact that Blade Runner was released 2 years before the book, like, means that there were obviously other influences of that sort of like future post-apocalyptic sort of like
For sure.
world. So that does lend credence to like Gibson having like been heavily influenced by other things, but it's so wild that like I had totally assumed that Blade Runner was like a result of somebody reading Neuromancer or vice versa. Like they just they're so close in themes.
And Blade Runner was it's so iconic and now so influential. Like I was in film study, and it's like one of the films that you start out like looking at and analyzing, and not just for the story, but like for the set design too. Like the whole thing was insane.
That's what I was going to say earlier too, about like what inspired, like what was before William Gibson, and like we would be shamed off the internet if we did a review of Neuromancer without mentioning Philip K. Dick and his stuff that inspired Blade Runner, you know? So like he also had a huge hand in creating this thing, and the book that was you know, it's not even close, but it's adapted into Blade Runner. The Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is like a short, very short book, but also is like post-apocalyptic future. So yeah, you know, but William Gibson really just like tied it all up in this beautiful knot and just hit it out of the park.
They recently turned those into a bunch of short films, by the way, on Amazon. They're actually pretty good if you haven't seen them.
I haven't. I will have to.
They're, I want to say, an hour each. There's like 7 or 8 of them. They've got all kinds of famous people in them. But I just like randomly came across it one day and I was like, huh, that sounds interesting. And then started watching it. And I was like, wait, this all seems very familiar. And then I was like, oh, right. Literally has the exact same name. It's just, they turned it into like a short like anthology of movies.
Which is, it's kind of cool. Yeah. I feel like it's just everything that we see now is connected to this book. Every sci-fi thing, there's a hint of cyberpunk now in it, or like a hint of Neuromancer. And will Alexa be our Neuromancer? I don't know.
None of it have anything to do with it.
No. So
so I don't know, because I don't have the physical copy of the book. Does it have the interviews with the other 2 authors at the beginning and end of the physical copy?
I don't know.
Or is that only on the audiobook?
Oh, you have a hard copy? Wow. I love it.
Yeah, that has
hard copy,
the
mine's soft
forward
copy.
by Neil Gaiman, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the beginning part before the first chapter.
I just bought a Neil Gaiman book.
What is it?
I just thought it was interesting that the end. I'm blanking on what you actually call that. The prologue, the beginning, or the end? I forget.
The
Anyway,
epilogue
the
prologue is
beginning.
Epilogue. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
prologue
Well,
is the beginning, epilogue is
epilogue is the end. Yeah. So in the epilogue, that's interview, it's a guy talking about how he was writing in this genre and had just like completely felt overwhelmed by everything, and the fact that like anytime he'd look at like authors, they were like seemed so like stuffy and stuck up, or they'd be like posing with a picture of their dog and they're always in like tweed suits and stuff like that. And he's like, I don't think I can do this because I don't want to be that person. And then he came across this book and saw on the jacket cover that that William Gibson just looks like a normal dude, not this guy who came up with this whole genre essentially and became this ridiculous dude.
I guess that helps.
He just dresses normal.
Humbleness.
Yeah, he just dresses normal, acts humble, and all this stuff. And he's like, and that gave me hope that I can do this. I don't have to be like those people over there. I could be like him and still be successful. And I just thought that was kind of cool that this guy comes up with all this stuff and he still looks like he shops at like a thrift store and stuff like that. Because he wanted to.
Something interesting I read about Gibson. He grew up reading two main types of fiction: science fiction and beat literature.
What's beat literature?
Literature about beats.
William Burroughs. Yeah, beats the purple stuff. William Burroughs, an American novelist and part of the Beat movement, was very influential on Gibson. The Beats rebelled against the conformity of the era by embracing jazz music,
beatniks,
using drugs, and practicing alternative spirituality, such as Japanese Zen Buddhism, which emphasizes meditation and intuition. Beat writers such as poet Allen Ginsberg and novelist Jack, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, experimented stylistically in their writing, as did Burroughs. Burroughs used drugs, wrote about drugs in his work, and used his prose to create intense narratives with a very different mood from realistic prose. Interesting.
What? So, like, what does that mean? Like, so he was influenced by these other groups, is what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
So beatniks, and what was the other one?
Yeah.
Sci-fi. Just
Sci-fi.
general sci-fi.
Sci-fi and beat literature, but then they just kind of explained the beat literature, assuming people didn't really know what that meant. So.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. I've heard of beatniks. I'd never heard of beat literature, though.
Yeah, jazz music and drugs. Okay, that kind of makes sense with some of his.
I think it's Jack Kerouac is his name.
Jack Kerouac.
Yeah. Kerouac,
On the Road. Have you guys read On the Road?
No.
Is that something he read? Is that something he wrote?
That's like one of Kerouac's big novels. I do not know it, but I know of it.
I do not either.
That book messed me up as a teenager, dude.
I was
that's
like, not a good review.
I'm
just so we're
running
clear.
away.
I'm gonna be on the road too.
I wonder what inspired him to because like Chiba City in Tokyo, like what made him set it there, because that also has a huge influence on the cyberpunk culture. It's very samurai and it has that Japanese-ness to it that is kind of like, it doesn't really, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on like why he maybe did that? I think that's interesting.
It was very interesting. I didn't think about that. Maybe he just really liked Japan a lot. I don't know. Maybe it interesting.
When you think of like leaders in technology and stuff, don't you think about Japan?
There you
the
go.
Japanese? Yes, I do.
The Japanese,
especially in the
usually
80s
always ahead of us.
Yeah, like when I think of technological advances, I definitely think of Japan, and like they're coming out with some weird shit, man.
And they're always ahead of us with that kind of stuff. So true.
Good call. I would say like there's a lot to how Japanese culture has changed. Essentially, like post World War II, like there was this there was a lot of sort of inward look of their culture. Like they really sort of withdrew from the world, like having been bombed by 2 nuclear bombs. They like essentially it greatly changed a lot of their culture. And that's why a lot of Japanese media has like these very dark undertones, because like no other country has been hit by a nuclear bomb. It's like it's a part of their history, just like
they literally made it a creature in Godzilla.
Right?
They have no one to cope with. They're just like, this happened to us.
And so like some folks retreated from that, and like that's why they have a lot of very nationalistic culture. And then the other side of that is a lot of people embraced that they realized they were behind in a lot of ways, and really sort of like took up the mantle of we need to start we need to get ahead. And I wouldn't say that they're like ahead of us in a lot of things. I would say more that they embraced technology in ways that a lot of other countries didn't. And they have just made themselves incredibly relevant in the modern world, especially like I think their economy is like one of the top performing economies in the world. Like they've done really well because of their history. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you said most of it, but they changed really heavily in the 70s and they doubled down on education and their people and supporting their people. And that's how they came to all these advancements in technologies. And they are superior to most of the world in technology. Because of the people that they invested in back then, because they could see that their economy was declining. And so they fixed it, and they came back bigger and badder than anyone else in the world. Like, have you seen how many like vending machine things they have?
Yeah, just like their convenience
transportation system. Like, have you heard about how they took more mold spores and rearranged their train transit system based on that? Like, they have incredible infrastructure, and yes, they are very Zionistic, and there are some not good things, but as far as technology goes, they are advanced because the government doubled down on their people, and it was right around that time where that was paying off, when Neuromancer was being made or being written. So that makes perfect sense why he said it there now, that I see it that way.
And one of my friends lives in Japan right now, so I learn a lot of interesting things about the country while she's like living there. And even like you said, the convenience stores. She took me shopping with her. She was video chatting with me and put me in her basket. And just all the like interesting, cool things that they have, just like as like meals and snacks, like in their convenience stores, is very interesting.
Very different.
I'm like, that stuff sounds good. Some of that stuff.
And I don't mean that he set the whole story there. I just mean Chiba City. I just thought that was
their utilization of efficient transport is also like fucking amazing.
Yeah,
best train
crazy
in the world, right?
Yeah, the bullet trains.
Yeah, the bullet train.
Just their transits, their public transit in general is insane.
The other thing I would say is that you got to be mindful of the fact, though, that they have fully embraced like isolationism even today. Like, you know, the fact that you can get hot meals out of a vending machine in Japan means like you can literally get hot meals without interacting with other human beings. Like there's some weird, crazy, dark things to it that like it's frightening
too. Like, you want to get ramen and not speak to a single soul, you can come eat at this ramen shop and like eat behind a curtain and not have to interact with anybody.
Sushi trains are the same way. You go in there, like you can get you can order sushi through a machine. It comes on a train. You pick it off the train. Like, it sounds really cool, but like it continues to embrace isolationism. Wow, that's really hard to say.
Isolationism.
Yeah,
hard word.
And it's just, I worry about lauding that too highly. It's They have population decline for a reason.
They have the highest rates of like depression, suicide, and all of that too, like in the country, because people like overwork there too, and yeah.
Their work culture.
Their work culture is not good.
Second from the United States.
My friend who is currently working there is an English teacher. Yeah, she talks about how like the work-life balance is not good. Not good
It's
over there.
bad,
that's
dude.
a majority of the Americans over there go into the teaching English route because that's
There's
the
a lot of
easiest way to
programs
get a
over there.
job.
Yep.
If you want to live
And the
abroad.
pay is not great, but the cost of living too, depending on where you live, is like tiny apartments, super cheap. Like her apartment's like $300 a month for a studio.
Oh my god, yeah. Somebody shared on another Discord a website. Hold on, I have to share this since it's relevant. What was it? It was in this Discord. Japan. There's like a website for like cheap houses in Japan or something. It was crazy. Like you could, these are obviously, not brand new houses, but you can buy houses in Japan for a fraction of what they would cost in America.
Crazy cheap.
Well, they're also at the highest level trying to reverse the Zionism and embrace other cultures more and bring it. They're getting a lot of Japanese people leaving and foreigners not coming. So they're trying to really fix that. And yeah,
I think
it's
that's what
kind of
they're doing
wild.
with a lot of those English programs too. Like they get people from like all over to go there.
Oh, yeah.
And, teach English. And like my friend who is over there right now, like she has met people from all over that are in the program with her.
Yeah,
and I think there's.
I had a buddy who went over there and did the same thing. He went over there, became an English teacher, and was there for like a year and came back because he's like, I love the idea, I love the culture in general, but I cannot deal with the way they do work and the way they prioritize work over everything all the time.
Sure. They get a lot of vacation though. Like my friend, she's been traveling all over the place. I think that's the part that gets her to stay for a couple of years, is that she's been traveling to so many cool places.
Yeah.
Even like throughout
but
Japan.
when you're working,
Was that the website?
You're working.
Yeah, true.
Cheaphousesjapan.com.
But to Gendred's point, I think that there's something to be said about isolationism and technology in general.
Sure.
Like our phones lead to isolationism, and like it's a scary,
it's a slippery slope. Yeah,
exactly. Because a lot of that too, having vending machines everywhere, just as that one example, there are far less homeless people in Japan. Like you're also allowed, drunk people come home and they sleep on the ground because they know that they'll be fine because people are nicer, so like there are things about every culture that are really good and really bad, I think.
Yeah.
Very
Oh
true.
yeah, for sure.
But I
So
never
overall-
thought about that though.
What do you mean?
The isolationism. The specifically having vending machines everywhere, and how, because I watch these videos of like, let's walk across Japan or let's go do this thing, and I just like watching people kind of visit
I
places.
watched a lot of those,
And like, you're right, it is very like, leave me alone, this is my thing, and like I just never thought about it that way, so I appreciate that point of
Sure.
view.
Me too.
That's one reason why there's like this new. I hope it's not happening anymore. But there's this fad a little while ago of like people going to Japan and just like being obnoxious in public to the point to where like they would get
really?
attacked because they would like just annoy the shit out of everyone else around them until someone like will be like step up, and then they'd like start a fight pretty much.
I didn't know about that.
Crazy.
Because like in Japan, like if you get on the subway, You get on the subway, you sit down, you get to your stop, you get off. You don't interact with other people, you don't make a ruckus, you don't play music, you don't have a phone call. It's a public place where you're supposed to respect everybody else. And people get on there and would just like be playing music on their phone and shit, and like you could see how upset they were making other people on the train. It's just wild because it's just not the way their culture is.
Well, something my friend told me too. She was video chatting me with when she was going to the 7-Eleven, and they're weird about like they don't like when people like are out in public video chatting with someone, for example. Like that's the thing that they're like not okay with over there. So she like hid me in her basket to talk to me just because they're weird about like video interaction for some reason, just random.
Well, they
things
probably
like that.
value their privacy, and
Yeah.
who knows
like
where
a
that video is
shared-
going to end up. And
It's
Yeah,
a shared
but just-
public space. It's the same thing with the subways, where like
Sure.
that's why the PS Vita did not fail in Japan. Like they love their handheld consoles, the DS. Everybody's playing their
Mhm.
DS on the
Mhm.
subway, like just sticking to themselves. They're not
Yeah.
got their headphones in, like it's just
so like there's
Yeah.
things, the isolationism. However, I get so annoyed here when I'm at the grocery store and somebody in front of me is like has their phone like this, and they're just like blah 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 blah, and I'm like, you don't have to be on speaker. Like,
yeah. There's a happy medium between those two.
Yeah.
I think
Oh my
that I want
God.
to live in.
If you're gonna
I
talk
mean-
at the store, have your headphones in or something.
Anecdote, today, my wife had a doctor's appointment this afternoon. She went into her doctor's appointment and like it was normal, quiet, whatever. And then they sent her upstairs to get some blood work done at the lab upstairs. And like in the corner of the waiting room of the lab, there's this older gentleman, got his phone on speaker mode, like out, like he's not even got it close to his face. He's like holding out away from him. It's just like
no.
the person on the phone's like yelling at him. He's yelling at the phone. It's like, what is wrong with America that this is allowed?
Yikes.
and then if you say something, you're the rude one. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
which answers Ginger's question. That's what's wrong.
yeah.
well, and
Like
like
they make you out to be the bad guy, like you're interrupting them, and it's like, no, you're interrupting everybody else around you.
that's one reason why
Yeah.
Americans have such a horrible reputation as travelers. Like you go anywhere, the moment like you open your mouth and they hear an American accent, you get disrespect just in their look, because we as a nation have not done a good job of being respectful of other cultures.
True. Very true.
You know, it's wild,
Which is
but
a sad thing.
I don't know how we got this far off topic. Anyways,
True.
Wait, we read a book this week,
Wait,
yeah.
what are you talking about? What book?
which was a great book. I think it ties in a lot with cyberpunk, the Matrix.
It does.
It took a lot of stuff from Blade Runner, like there's so many things this book helped create in the world which we enjoy right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild.
Which is crazy because it came out in 84.
Yeah, and I
if we
think
were
back.
to s-
I think back though, like the influence of a particular piece of media is like almost never going to be immediate. So as an example, like modern cell phones are heavily like influenced by the Star Trek like tricorders. Like Star Trek had this mobile device, they'd flip it open and they could talk into it. And like that is where the idea of cell phones came from. Like that they essentially someone's like, I need that technology, and they made it happen. And the amount of time between when that was first on television and then like when we actually had cell phones, that like flip phones in the early 2000s or whatever, like it's wild. And if you compare like the time frame of Gibson's book and like all the things that we have today that were influenced by that, it's like it seems there's like a 20 to 30 year like gap, like where when something like people embrace a piece of media to the point to where parts of it become reality.
Yeah, I think it's crazy how much of his became reality though, versus something like, say, the Jetsons that was around in the 60s. We don't have hardly any of that stuff.
True.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have space travel for sure either. That's for damn sure. I always wanted like the Jetsons, like when George Jetson gets up in the morning, gets like a shower, and the machine like washes him and like combs his hair and brushes his teeth.
His teeth, yeah.
That would be fucking amazing.
Running on a treadmill out in the open air of space.
Yeah, well, they're not in space, but yeah, he's like thousands of feet up in the air.
Yeah.
On a treadmill, just okay.
You know what's crazy to me is in my lifespan, I could have lived from the first flight in 1903 to a man on the moon in 1969. True. Like 66 years between first flight and man on the moon. Like that's crazy. I would only be like I would still have some years to go after seeing both of those things, you know?
I mean, it's the amount of like the way technology has sped up our lifetime and like everything. Like, it's going to be, we're not done. Like there's still going to be so much more coming out of it. And I think a lot of people see NEUROMANCER and they think of the AI stuff out there, and it's scary. It's scary what can happen if like an AI were to like get out and be in the wild. But I don't think those things exist yet. Like what we think of as an AI, what people call AIs, like those aren't AIs. Like Alexa's not an AI. Like it's not. Yeah,
they're all just algorithms. They can't think for themselves yet.
Generative.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Yeah,
it's like a really advanced form of like auto correct. Like that's really all it is.
It's helpful. It's nice. It's great. But like, let's not say, let's call it what it is. You know, it's not.
It still can't figure out that humans only have 5 fingers and not 7.
Actually, they've got that pretty fixed.
A rule created
Do they?
Stating not to kill its human.
I just don't understand why we're so excited for AI to be taking over the jobs of like artists. Like, why can't AI go do the things we don't want to do?
We just had this discussion.
We do that?
My coworker and I were literally talking about this the other day because she went to art school, and like we have like messed with AI and like having AI like ChatGPT come up with like images for us and stuff like that. And I don't think that's something AI can like really replace, because you can tell when like a photo is made by an AI compared to like someone like actually painted or drew something.
I tell like, you can't.
You know, you can't replace that. Like we were talking about that. No. Like you can tell the difference. It's not the same.
No, you can absolutely. You can't tell the difference. They're winning award. They're winning awards.
I think you can.
AI art is winning.
I disagree.
There's one that won like first place. It was an experiment that somebody did, and they won first. An AI generated image won first place, and I was like, that's embarrassing.
Companies are using them illegally.
Like I guess maybe I haven't seen good examples, because the examples I've seen, I'm like, you can definitely tell that was made by an AI.
You should see the right examples, because there are, you cannot tell the difference. Yeah, and it's fucking scary.
What V8 was talking about earlier with like you know, they have like 6 fingers or whatever, like their faces are like just weirdly off. Like that's they have fixed that, and so like photorealistic things are coming out of AI now, and on top of that, like there's still the same thing as like artistic license. You could give somebody 6 fingers as an actual person making art. Like so in terms of, can the AI create what humans are creating? Yes. The answer is yes. Now, is it going to be good? Does it fit your needs? That's a question that only you as the consumer can decide. But the fact that you can go to Bing image creation tool, whatever, and ask it to make something for you, and then turn around and use it on your podcast, you know, for book club as a logo thing, like
nobody does that.
You just took that job away from an artist, and that's like the same thing. Not good.
It's the same thing that happened with automation. It's being promoted by these industrial CEOs that are like, this is going to help us. This is going to do all the things. We're going to work less, and it didn't. We don't work less. We work more. And that's the same thing they're doing with AI. It's going to help. It's going to help. It's going to help. And it's not for us. It's going to help you. It's not going to help us. That's how it always works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Although I was happy to hear that there looks to be, I don't know how much this is true, but I read an article in the newspaper the other day. Yes, a physical newspaper, about how those like self-checkout lines are like not, people hate them. People hate self-checkout.
Was the article saying like it's
Walmart is like discussing like
to come back to your store.
Yeah,
and I was like, which
it's crazy.
I wanted to know what's the age of who you're polling, because I personally sometimes will decide like, oh, I need to go grocery shopping, or I need to, do whatever. Which store has self-checkout so I don't have to interact with somebody?
Mm-hmm.
That's my thinking, but I'm also like in my 30s. So who are they polling that are like, no, I need somebody to physically check out my items, For
me, the problem is really not like I don't want to interact with humans. Like, honestly, I don't mind somebody else scanning the shit, because I hate that part. I hate having to like find a barcode and scan it over the thing. Like, that part annoys the piss out of me half the time, because if that plastic is wrinkled whatsoever, it's a pain. I don't want to do it. I'm glad somebody can have that job.
Let the record show that you and I are 10 years apart. So
right, that's fair.
True.
That's fair. My problem is the fucking bagger who like messes everything up on the other end. So I'll like push a bagger out of the way and bag my shit myself, because they fuck that up. They'll give me like one bag that weighs 80 pounds and another one that weighs like 5. And I'm like, you're doing this wrong.
5 gallons of milk go into one bag. They don't double bag it.
My problem is that I am a self-checkout person, but the
problem show Aaron and I are the same age.
But the problem with it is I'm starting to go back to the regular checkouts, because when the littlest tiniest thing goes wrong, who do you have to wait for? A person.
You have to wait for a person.
Who's now helping 6 other people first, because they're like one off the 4 years.
Right.
So you're staying there
and
forever.
it's so much worse. I would rather give up. Like, I want AI to make self-checkout fix itself. Figure it out.
Well, it was really funny. We were at, I want to say, Walmart doing the self-checkout, and their areas are fucking terrible. But we hit a problem on the machine, and like I'm like I just like shake my head and look at it. And I look up, and the little light's flashing above me, and I turn around, and the guy over there at the corner clicks a button on his computer, and I'm back to scanning. Like, I think some people are better at handling those problems more quickly, because it was just a stupid issue. Like, something had double scanned and I was trying to get rid of it. But yeah. I think
you're trying to steal. It's okay.
As a whole, fuck that. As a whole, I think the experience honestly was better when people were doing it, because like, if I have a coupon, I need a person. If something won't scan, I need a person. Like, there's so many things that can happen. And like, my generation does coupon more. I'll admit it. I get it. But
I should coupon more.
It's kind of wild, like, how much that little bit of human interaction is not something I want to avoid. I really only go there to the self-checkout personally when the lines are too long at the other areas. Like, if I could,
same.
Like, I would rather not. Like, it's just so much of a pain. Like,
I think I just do it out of convenience.
The people, if I have somebody check me out, their sense of urgency isn't there. I don't want to make small talk. I want you to bag my stuff as fast as you can, and I want to get out of there.
That's fair.
True. You have sense of urgency. You're bagging my items wrong.
Have you heard of a country called Japan?
I don't remember where I heard this story now, but I heard a story the other day. May have been from a comedian. I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure I heard it on YouTube, so probably. But they were talking about they were in the self-checkout line, and the girl at the desk, you know, that's there to like help when things go wrong or whatever that we're talking about, came over and was like, why are you using so many bags? Because he was putting, you know, like he'd like take milk and put it in a bag and then get another bag for the next thing. And she's like, you're using, or he was like double bagging things. And she's like, you shouldn't be double bagging stuff because it wastes bags. You should be splitting that stuff up. So you only need to use one bag. And he's like, okay, so if I take these 2 items that are in a double bag and I put them each in their own bag, how am I saving a bag? And she's like, you shouldn't be double bagging things. It's a waste of plastic. And he's like, what? I'm sorry. Explain to me again how if I take half of the stuff out of this bag and put it into another bag, how do I save any plastic? I'm still using the same amount of bags.
You make your customers bring in reusable bags because they're stronger.
Yeah.
Welcome to Seattle, right?
It's just funny that like those are the kind of people that they can hire now because they're not having to like even think about what your change is because the machine does it for them. They just have to go over and know their password to click a button so that you can move on with your thing. And that's really all they have to be capable of doing in self-checkout.
The other part of that, though, is like that if those people try to have some sort of like free thought and like actually be humans there, like they get crushed by the machine, too. Like, no, you don't do that for the customer. You're wasting time. Like literally, there's no winning for those people. Yeah. That's why this is so bad.
We can't win. The AI will take over.
I like having the choice. Do I have enough things where I could get through self-checkout successfully? Do I have a big cart? Maybe I should go through there. I like having the choice. Don't take either one away from me. Don't force me.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Don't take away my choice. Okay.
I am perfectly okay with the choice. Just like don't like make it better though. Make it better. Make self-checkout better.
I'll choose the right one, and
make
you
it
guys
better.
can choose the wrong one.
But
like, interact with people.
Can I have corporations not try to like fucking crush their employees under tiny wages and make them do shitty jobs? Can we get back to like why do we have like these learning language models creating art and shit, and we have like people fucking killing themselves in warehouses? Like machines can do warehouse jobs. Let the people do the art.
Preach.
Let the people do the art. Like, and like, I'm not trying to take away jobs from warehouse workers. Do you know what? If you want to work in a warehouse, go work with the robots. That's fine. I don't care. But let the people do the art, please.
Well, you know what? Speaking as somebody who has a bachelor's in photography, thank you.
Speaking as someone who's like been talking to you about like photography, yes, I agree as well.
Yeah, I have. That could be a whole other discussion, a whole other podcast. AI art. Let's discuss.
I have
/ I will destroy you.
I've had some pretty heated discussions with Nubbies and James and stuff.
Yeah, Caleb.
Like
Yep. Caleb loves AI art.
Caleb loves AI art. Yeah.
And like, I think there's just a thing to be said about AI can generate some stuff that's like it's usable. I think it's usable, but
absolutely
when it comes to something like my VTuber character, like I'm not asking AI to generate that. I'm gonna pay someone to do what I want because they can do it like exactly as I want it. Trying to correct AI sometimes is like really hard. And I'm using the word AI so incorrectly here, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to put a nice little bow on this. I would never ask AI to write me a book like Neuromancer.
No.
Could you imagine?
Only someone like William Gibson in the time of his life at that moment with that pressure, could he have written a book like like Neuromancer.
The fact that he rewrote the first 2/3 like 12 times, that is so crazy to me.
It's incredible.
But I'm going to say this. I also think that's probably why some of the stuff is a little bit jumbly the way it is.
I think so too. But I like that. I like human error. I think it adds personality. And sure, maybe it's a little harder to read, but that makes it William Gibson's Neuromancer, you know?
I agree.
That's how he chose to do it. Could it have been better? Sure, but that's the way it is.
It's so good.
Yeah.
AI can still be just as confusing. Sometimes I think more so.
True.
But
fucking Wintermute.
I think that's a wrap for this discussion on Neuromancer. I have a new plan for next month that I'm not gonna say, but I will be posting it. So that'll be a new surprise for everybody involved. So check out the Discord for that probably tomorrow. So get excited. But thank you everybody for this lively discussion on Neuromancer and AI technology.
Thank you. And I would also like to ask one more question. Who is going to read more of this Sprawl trilogy after this? On your own? Anybody?
Eventually.
I might.
Yeah, I might get around to it eventually.
Not back to back, though.
Yeah.
I read this book in like 26 hours.
Yeah, you like burned through, and I was like, "Wait, I just caught up to you." And then you're like, I'm done.
I'm done. Yeah, true.
Yeah,
like,
I thought that was pretty funny.
I'm halfway done.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm starting now, and I'm like, wait, but
he posts
you have like 2 days. What do you mean you're starting now?
It was like 6 days.
I was like, oh,
I know.
Good.
What's it?
I am a speed reader. I'm a speed reader, and like that's one reason why I do like physical copies, because I will read through something and like sometimes I get it perfectly, and sometimes I'm like, that's a little fuzzy, and I'll read it again like 2 or 3 times until I'm like, okay, I'm good, moving forward. But like that's why sometimes I'll have questions about things, because I will remember concepts, I'll remember like things that I thought were important, and other things are just gone.
Fair.
This is why. So I think you would enjoy reading Feed. It's a young adult. So to me, maybe it's like more of an easier read.
Thank you for the sub, Jamothy. Folks, please do me a favor. Thank you, Jamothy. Do me a favor, everyone. If you're not part of the Discord, please go beneath the stream, go to the About section, click on the Discord link, come join the Discord. The book club is open to everybody. You don't have to be on the stream. You can just come in and read the same book as us, share your thoughts. We do community nights every Wednesday night, as our lovely friend Squandy said earlier. Right now it's GTA. We will play other games on community nights. They're open to everybody in the community. It's not locked down.
Only GTA.
Only GTA.
So we really love this community. We want to keep growing it and have everyone here. And it's open to everybody, right? So please feel free. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you so much, Annie, for organizing this as always. I look forward to seeing your next surprise, whatever you're going to throw at us. I'm excited.
It will be a surprise, yes.
Yeah, and I just really appreciate everyone being here.
I definitely really have been happy with everybody's involvement, so thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
You are welcome.
This was a good one.
This was good.
This, I think, was my favorite of the conversations.
What a jam-packed read. Kind of a heavier one, but a lot of us really enjoyed it. Who knew, if left to their own devices, the tech could be bad? All hail our AI overlords. Come join us in February as we dive into another acclaimed sci-fi book The Three-Body Problem by Liu Cixin.